Welcome to the Kentucky Bourbon Traveler. Hi, thanks for joining us. I'm Kent and welcome back to Louisville, Kentucky. You might wonder where we've been trying a lot of really good bourbons. We got a great one for you today. Today we're heading off the Bourbon Trail to Bardstown, Kentucky, to the Sazerac Company's Barton 1792 Distillery. That's in the hour east of Louisville, Kentucky. The 1792 brand is getting some accolades this year as Jim Palmer, who publicizes the Whiskey Bible, named 1792 Full Proof his 2020 World Whiskey of the Year. The Barton 1792 Distillery and its rickhouses were once in the country in Bardstown, and it was slowly surrounded by residents along the picturesque creek behind it. Barton's facility is an antique operating distillery and not as polished as some of the tourist design showcases out there. The buildings at Barton include pre-Prohibition pieces of earlier distilleries, including this yellow limestone block wall which survived an earlier distillery fire, so they just built onto it. The smokestack is still used for coal burning. The coal is burned to create steam for 5-story column stills like this one. Okay, I think many are curious who Barton is, but no one ever knew except maybe the distillery's owner, Chicagoan Oscar Getz, who in 1944 changed the name from the Tom Moore Distillery to Barton, as his partnership was named Barton Brands. The distillery is now owned by a family company, Sazerac, which is a huge hitter in bourbon, which also owns Buffalo Trace, known for its expensive, hard-to-find unicorn favorites like Pappy Van Winkle, Barton's, Blanton's, I should say, and Weller. You might be surprised to know they also own Fireball Whiskey, which is one of the hottest selling whiskey titles regardless of the quality people perceive it to be. The Barton 1792 distillery site has been used since 1874 by many distillers on the site. The huge attraction to this site has been the naturally filtered limestone springs on the property. I'm sure it makes some great whiskey. It always has. Here above the distillery grounds is the Tom Moore Spring, named after the previous owner. Every day, trucks from local farms bring in high-quality corn, and they're sampled from the load to make sure that the moisture content and the quality is good enough. When the local Kentucky corn is passed, it's emptied like this from the bottom of the truck to be moved to the distillery mill, which here the distillery mill is crushing the corn kernels to the appropriate size. Finally, spring water and yeast allows the mash to ferment to be ready to distill in these unusual outside fermentation tanks. Very old buildings, many built after Prohibition, right up to the 1970s, are a problem for most of the distilleries these days. The Barton 1792 distillery has been getting a lot of unwanted attention from the Environmental Protection Agency these days. They've had a rickhouse collapse, you might have heard of, and a big spill recently. We heard in the community, by the way, as far as the rickhouse collapse, a lot of theories. None that are officially acknowledged, but the most likely, some work on the exterior of one of the rick houses didn't go exactly how they planned. Instead, the brick house collapsed, spilling Warehouse 30's barrels of bourbon down the hill. Everyone just about forgot about that one. But then in March 2019, one of their beer well tanks collapsed through the floor when one of the supports failed, pouring approximately 120,000 gallons of ready-to-be distilled mash into the parking lot, and quite a few gallons went through the storm drains, which empty into the creek. Our bourbon today is 1792 single barrel, 98.6 proof. 1792 is named on behalf of the year Kentucky became a State of the Union. Barton brands are usually very reasonable. Talking $10, $20 a bottle. And this $49 bourbon from a fantastic honey barrel was too good to go into some of the less pricey small batch bourbons. The single barrels from Barton 1792 are a dramatic departure from the sweeter 1792 small batch offering. 1792 single barrel has a muted oak and caramel nose, which on the palate has a very nice sweet brown sugar, caramel apple taste, and a short finish, much like the palate. It's much like drinking an apple pie, if you ask me. There's no burn on this one either, and it reminds me of the Sazerac Company's other brands, Buffalo Trace's E.H. Taylor Small Batch. But we're told it's a 7 to 10 year bourbon, and it sure tastes like it. It's aged with a 3.5 alligator burned barrel char, and is usually aged on the 4th or 5th floor of the rick houses. You can even tell with the color in this clear bottle. It's a little lighter than most 7 to 10 year bourbons. Sure doesn't taste it though. The mash bill is a secret, and the only thing we can tell you for sure is it has 51% or greater corn, a purchase from within 100 miles. Both the rye and the barley are from the Northeast U.S., specifically in South and North Dakota, we're told. Well, next up, Christiana's cooking with bourbon, making bourbon honey beef roast for a fantastic dinner. Go on, give up some of your bourbon. It's worth it.
Hi, I'm Christiane, originally from Würzburg, Germany. Today we cooking bourbon beef in a crock pot. And I started out mixing soy sauce and Worcester sauce with brown sugar. Now I'm adding honey. Tomato sauce. Water. And then, of course, we're gonna use yummy bourbon. Mix the sauces together. We have a chuck roast here, and I put salt, pepper, and paprika on it on both sides. I'm putting it in the crock pot, and then I'm gonna pour our wonderful sauce over it. And soon as you have it all in your crock pot, you turn it on and have it on high, cooking for 6 to 8 hours. Depends on the size of your roast. I got about a 2-pound roast. And here's our beautiful bourbon beef served with a vegetable medley and nice roasted bread. Enjoy.
Kentucky Bourbon Traveler.